Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Everybody, hello. Today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 audiobooks and audiobook series that I listened to in 2024. And I'm so excited to do this. I greatly bumped up the number of audiobooks I was reading this year. I've always been a pretty heavy audiobook listener, but I did bump that up this year because I have joined a few PR teams that focus solely on audiobooks. And so I actually haven't bought as many audiobooks as I have in the past. And I don't have as many audiobook subscriptions as I used to because I do get a lot of ARCs or ALCs as they're called, advanced listening copies. So I will tell you which of those that I did, but I will have links to all of their audios down below. I do get a bit of commission if you use an Amazon link for those. And this isn't a video about all of the things that I use for audiobooks because, again, I don't have any updates past like previous video I've done about that because, again, I've actually canceled some of those subscriptions, and not because I don't like them, but because your girl's on a tight budget being a full-time creator, and with the number of ALCs that I get, I don't have to have I'm flush with audiobooks without doing that. There also was a audio bookworm thing that started this year in the same way that Stuff Your Kindle days happened. There's now Stuff Your Earbuds days. So there's opportunities to get free audiobooks from authors as promos. So those are different things to look out for. And that is something I try to subscribe to and keep an eye out for when those are going to happen. And also, if you catch one of the sales, you can subscribe to their newsletter to know when the next one is going to happen and stuff like that. So we're going to go through these. I'll tell you where I got them from. I'll tell you who the narrators are. But all of these books are books I've talked in depth about in other videos. So I really want to try to keep this tight, keep it focused to them, and get you on your way with these recommendations. But I would love to hear what your favorites are down below. And if there's any recommendations you have for me. But let's go ahead and go through these. So I have one where I've actually only listened to the first book in this series, but I have bought the second one and I have the third one on my wish list. But they're going to have the same narrators for the whole thing, and it is a trilogy I've already read, so I know I'm going to like it. But that's going to be Hills and Shivers and Shadows by Pam Godwin, or the Frozen Fate trilogy, which I tried not to include too many books in here that are on my favorites list of the year because I'll talk about them in my favorites list, but I had to do it about this one, okay? This series, I want to gush about it whenever I possibly can. And this was the series of 2024 for me. You're going to hear me talk about it a whole bunch. And she is getting the audiobooks done. So far, this one is out. It is duet narrated, which I should probably explain that just in case at the beginning of this. Duet narration is when there is at least a male and a female, and they do all of the parts of the other genders in this, or the other sexes in this. So the heroine, Frankie, she narrates every time Frankie is speaking, whether it's her POV or not. And then, so Stella Hunter does hers. And then there's Jack Hesperus, who does all of the male parts in here. So there's 5 male POVs in here. And then there's also, any other characters who might show up. Now, this is a pretty isolated story, so there are only the 5 male voices in this one anyway. But that means that in any of their POVs, they do their part. So that's what duet narration means. That can mean there is more than 2 people too, which I have a few of those on this list we're going to get to. Or, it doesn't have to be a male and a female. There is a sapphic one coming out I'm excited for, that each character has their own voice that they're narrating too, which I think is so cool that just because it's sapphic, there's still 2 narrators doing it and not just one who's switching. I'm excited for that. So anyway, this was done so wonderfully. I knew it was going to be good. It gave me so many chills. It gave me all the feelings that I did when I read it with my eyeballs, and this story is fantastic. Like I said, I'm not going to go into the details about that. I'm talking about the audiobook part of this, but it was just so well done. This is such a atmospheric story, and the intensity with which both of these narrators do their jobs here is phenomenal, especially Jack. number one, because he's doing 5 different male voices and they're all very distinct. Even particularly Cody and Leo, who they both have deep, growly mountain man voices. You can still tell the difference as soon as their words come out. Even though they're very similar, he finds these super subtle changes that show their difference. And that is like true talent to me. I love that. All right. We have a couple here non-romance ones I want to share because this is about the audiobooks I love most. And I have to share Empire of the Damned. This was book 2 in, I don't know if it's just the Empire of the Vampire series. I think that's just what the series is called. But I was so anticipating this. Empire of the Vampire was one of my favorite books of the year that one came out. And this just blew my socks, my pants, everything off, man. It was crazy. This is so intense. This is about the edge that my heart can take for not knowing how this story is going to end, right? Like, I do not know who's going to live. I'm hopeful. There are a lot of resurrections that happen in here just because they're vampires and mystical beings. And so if someone's dead, don't count them out. Even if their heart's not beating anymore, don't count them out. You don't know, type of thing. But this just, oof. And I love it if you get the physical copy along with it. There are full illustrations. A great dream of mine is to someday have the copies from the UK because they have full color illustrations in them. But there's illustrations throughout this whole thing. So in the first book, oh, see, look at it. This is not duet narration. This is dual narration. Because there is another narrator who gets added. So the first one is just Damian Lynch is who did book 1. And book 2, we get another character's POV, and it's a woman whose name is Shakira Shute, I think is how you say that, or Shute, I don't know. I won't tell you who that character is, but now as it's split into parts, there is a part 1 that is narrated by the man, and then there's something that happens to that character. Like, we know he's not dead. This is his main story, so like we know that. But it changes to another character, and I was so shocked because a female narrator started talking, and I was like shook by it so much. So I love this series. If you're someone who doesn't have to have romance, now that's not to say there aren't some romances in here, but in the first one, there's a pretty tragic romance. And in the second one, there's a romance that gets going, and I don't know how it's going to end. So I'm not promising an HEA for this world at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be dead by the end because this is a story that's being told as a like, what's it called? He's reiterating what's happening to a historian. It's being kept as a historical, and our hero, he starts in prison at the beginning of the book, and there is a vampire historian who's taking down his story because they don't want to lose the history. Vampires who live forever, their histories are very important to them. And when we continue into this one, that's still happening. So this book is told in a kind of interesting way because the current time is he's sitting in this cell, smoking a pipe, telling this story, and it will get interjected by the historian. Sometime will be like, are you telling the truth? Like, I don't think that's what really happened. Like, that will happen. So when you're reading that with your eyes, that can be a little off-putting. But once you hear it, you understand how it's being told, and it makes a lot more sense. Like, it's really, I just love it. So that's one of the things I actually think this story is elevated by the audiobook, because it just puts you in, you know, you're being told a story, which is how the story is being told. Like, it's literally being orated to this historian who's writing it down. And I love that. But when you're reading it, that's a bit confusing because every, like literally every paragraph has quotation marks because the story is being stolen. So that's a bit confusing to your eyes. So anyway, this is in my top audiobooks for sure. And in my non-romance, this one is like almost at the tippy top. There's one other book that might beat it, but this is like way at the tippy top of that. So yeah, fantastic. And as a bonus, I had to throw this in. If you get the audiobook from Audible, there is a bonus interview at the end of the audiobook with Jay Kristoff and Klaus Michelson. which is fantastic. So his name just went right out of my head and I hate myself. Joseph Morgan. There we go. An interview with Joseph Morgan is a big fan of these books, actually. And I was someone who was around Twitter when this bromance was forming. So for there to be an interview with those two at the end of this audiobook, you have, like, you got to listen to it and then listen to that interview because it's amazing. But make sure you read the book first because there are spoilers in the interview. Okay, then another non-romance favorite audiobooks were the Greenbone Saga. Abso-fucking-lutely so good, okay? I just finished Jade Legacy at the beginning of December, and it was a 6-star read. Okay, this trilogy as a whole is a 6-star read for me. It probably won't be on my, like, top 10. It'll be, again, like with Empire of the Damned on my, like, honorable mentions, but this trilogy was gut-wrenching. It was amazing. And again, I wasn't supposed to go in super depth about these, but this is basically like an Asian mafia with magic. And jade stones, jade, the mineral stone, is some people can use it and it gives them powers. And so those who can use it are called greenbones. And they are the ones in power, basically. But there are warring clans of Greenbones, and that's why it feels kind of like a mafia thing. The narrator for this is Andrew Cushineau, and he is the voice of this series to me. It's great. I knew, see, with fantasy, I pretty much always need an audiobook, and that's why a lot of fantasy ends up on my favorites list, because I just think that narrators who narrate fantasy that is what helps me get hooked on it. So these are so good. Again, prepare to be destroyed if you listen to that series, though, because it takes place over about 30 years. And so you aren't promised happy for anyone. I'll just say that. But it was wonderful. Okay, then we have a little quick one. And I think this is the perfect time of year for you to get this because it is a Christmas novella. Now, I don't often have novellas in favorites lists. It's not that I don't like them, but they're not usually my favorite thing. This was just perfect. It really was. So this was one that I got from Must Love Audio, and I've said this in many of my weekly wrap-ups this year. Must Love Audio, besides being an audiobook PR group that is backed by like a lot of narrators who are in those audiobooks, are a part of this, and they work with authors of color too to help fund their audiobooks. Well, that's not just them. That's Lyrics Audiobooks who does that. But there's Lyrics Audiobooks, East House Productions, and a couple others that are all within this. But why I love them so much, not only for helping me get access to audiobooks to review, is also because I have tried more new authors through them than anything else. Like on this list, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. No, there's 3 of these ones that I only tried the book because of them. And I now want to read more of that author because of them. So that is why I have such high respect for that. Now, it's very hard to get into this audiobook group. You can go to Must Love Audio's Instagram and fill out their request form. And they slowly have added some more people. But they have to limit the size of the group because with audiobooks, often you don't just have an unlimited amount of those that you can offer as ARCs in the same way you could do that with a digital ARC as an author. You would offer 1,000 of them if you wanted to. You know, if you want to have that many people reading your book for free, you can. But with an audiobook, there's usually kind of a limit on that with some situations. So there's only so much room for people. So sometimes you get every book you ask for and sometimes you don't. This one was called Can I Tell You Something? By Holly June Smith, and it's a Christmas vacation novella, and it is actually about an erotic narrator he has like basically an OnlyFans, and he narrates these like little sexy things where it's like he's talking to you. He does like kind of a boyfriend experience. He'll take requests to read certain things, and so he's actually a voice engineer who he did this to make some extra money. It's like helped fund, you know, different things for him. And he has a roommate that he also works in Hollywood with, and his roommate isn't planning to go home for Christmas, but they get kind of a last minute chance to do that. And his roommate's family always stays at this like ski resort in this one country for like the week between Christmas and New Year's. He always stays there, and both of them are able to go. Now, the heroine's point of view of this one, she is the sister of the roommate, and so she is also actually a fan of this erotic narrator, and she does not know that this is her brother's roommate because she's never seen him. They live in different countries, actually. She's in the UK, and her brother lives in California working in Hollywood. So she's never seen this roommate, and they end up being able to catch a flight, and they surprise the family because they had said they wouldn't be there. And she immediately knows who he is because he isn't someone who fully like hides his face or anything, I believe. I believe he shows it. And so she knows who he is, and she's so embarrassed. And when she goes, and he thinks she's really attractive, and he's like, why is she giving me like a cold shoulder and acting like that? Because she's being really standoffish because she is so embarrassed. And so he ends up looking her up on Instagram and looking her up, and he realizes that he has months and months of Instagram DMs that she sent him like as a fan. Okay, now she never thought he was going to read them, but after she listens to certain performances, she will send him these of being like, that was so hot, or this or whatever. So he knows that she knows who he is. And when, at the same time that he's looking her up, she's in her room and she's like, oh my God, if he looks me up. So she goes into Instagram and she's going to like delete all of his things. And she sees that it says read by all the messages. She's like, fuck, he knows that I know. So that is the setup of this. And now we've read this scenario before of like how someone finds out someone already knows them. But the way that this one played out, I thought was really good because he is very flattered that she likes his stuff, but he also is very attracted to her. But she's like, nothing can happen with this. You're only here for a week. We live in different places. I don't want to mess up things with my brother. But they're very attracted to each other, and like they like a lot of the same things and all this stuff. So they definitely turn it into kind of a seduction play or whatever. But I had such a good time with this, and I thought it was just the perfect time of year to listen to it. And there is actually a second book in the series that I really want to read it, but I kind of want to wait for the audio because since this was done, this is made for being in audio. Like it is. There's little clips of his performances that are done. It's in duet narration because this is what it was made for. So there's a second book that's out that is about the brother and his love interest, but I kind of don't want to read it yet because I want to wait for that audio book to come out. But I really liked this. Okay, moving right along here, there was Mad Love by Willow Astor, and this is another one I got from Must Love Audio. Now, Willow Astor was already on my radar because I'd actually met her at a book signing earlier this year, and I bought 2 of her books from a previous series, but I hadn't got to them yet. I kept meaning to, and I didn't, and so this was the start of her new series, the Single Dad Playbook, and there was an opportunity for this audiobook. So I was like, let's do it. Let's start fresh with a new series, and there's an audiobook available. And this one was dual narration, and I fell absolutely in love. I loved this so, so much, and the audiobook was done so well. This one was narrated by, I'm sorry. Can I Tell You Something was done by Evelyn Rose and Adam Gold. Sorry, I'm telling people who the narrators are. So back to this. This one was narrated by Connor Craze and Ava Erickson in dual narration, and I love Connor Craze. He's actually, I think, the only one who shows up on here twice. No, maybe Teddy does too. And not because I don't love a lot of authors, but it's just, I love his voice. I think he does great Mafia guys, and he also did a good football guy in here. I really liked it. But this one is a surprise single dad. He doesn't know that he has a 2-month-old son until the mother of his son dies in a car accident, and the boy ends up in the hospital. He's okay. It literally hit direct on the driver's side, and the little boy was okay. And he doesn't know that he has a son until the hospital calls and says that he's on the birth certificate. So then the sister of the woman who died, so the aunt of this little boy, she is very, very upset that this guy is here. She's like, you didn't want anything to do with him, and now you're here because my sister's dead. And he's like, I did not know. And she's like, no, my sister said she told you. And he's like, she did not. I promise you, I would absolutely have showed up if I knew. He's like, I had this one night stand with her, a year ago. She did not tell me. And it's really hard for the heroine to believe that in the beginning. And it can almost make her feel unlikable because when we're in the hero's POV, we can see how genuinely in he is from the word jump. He's a little disbelieving that the boy is his, but even before they do the DNA test, he's like, if this kid's mine, I'm all in. I would not miss out for a second. And that's just hard for the heroine to hear, because he's like, I'm getting this DNA test done. I'm the father. I want you to be involved. He's like, I don't know anything about having a baby, but I'm not walking away. And he's mine. So you can help or you can get out. And that's a hard line to start. And so I understand why she's defensive and why she's scared. And that for me made it easy for me to put myself in the heroine's point of view, because I think of my nieces, though I know who their father is and who, like, I know all that. But if that had been me, I would claw tooth and fight for my nephew if this was a scenario. So I understand her defensiveness. But what makes it work is, number one, that this hero, Wes, he holds nothing back. He's very vulnerable from the start. He bends over backward to really accommodate her, because he's just very understanding. And we understand why, because we meet his family and we're like, his family's amazing. And they're, only, I think his sister's suspicious of the woman, but all the rest of his family is like, we're in, let us buy things. What do you need? We're so excited. And it's overwhelming for the heroine, because she'd been the one helping her sister. She'd actually spent probably more time with her nephew than the mother had, because her sister was young and she's a bit reckless, and all these things. And so I felt for her. So if you start this and you're annoyed with her, just try to think of that, of like, what would you do? This stranger that your sister told you bad things about is now the father of this little boy, and he can take him just out of your hands, and you and your parents could never see him again. And you completely rest on his generosity if you get to see them. So I forgive her very quickly. And so then all of that, see, I love this one. This wasn't quite a 6-star book, but I loved it so much. And the audiobook elevated it so much. It was such a good one to listen to. But then where this goes with it, though, is, like I said, he bends over backward to accommodate. He isn't judging her. He's like, I need your help. I don't know about being a dad. I'm in football. Like, right now I'm off season, but soon I'll be back. Like, do you want to be kind of like his nanny / aunt? And so he moves her into his home, and they are now co-parenting this little boy together. And so this becomes not even an enemy, like, she just distrustful of him. It's strangers to friends to lovers. So she may seem like she hates him to start, but she doesn't. She's scared. She's very scared. And I get that. Okay. Quick one here. There was The Wrench Kings by Daisy Jane. I did actually listen to ALCs of this one, but I got them from the author agency. So this is someone else I wanted to bring up. I did make a video not too long ago. We'll see if I find it or I remember to put it up here, but you can find it in like my recommendations list if I don't put it up here. That is the different PR companies that I use, and this one is in there. So this is called the Author Agency, and they often have some audio arcs available as well. They don't have a ton because their main focus is the regular books, but there are quite a few audiobooks I got from them as well. If you're not able to get into must-love audio, like I said, this is a good place to go. As well as I've said this, NetGalley now has audio arcs as well. That's a great place. So, Wrench Kings by Daisy Jane. This is a kinky small town series, but this series, honestly, this is my favorite series of hers. I've read quite a few books by now because literally the tagline is just like blue collar heroes and like everyday kink. So it's not about the clubs or the super specific rules or whatever. It's these everyday couples discovering fun, sexy things together. And what's even cooler about these is the audiobooks are all narrated by Daisy Jane. And she has an amazing voice, okay? She really does. And they're all done with Jason Clark in this series, I believe. So yeah, it's Jason Clark and Daisy Jane, and it's duet narration, which makes it really cool as the series go on, because not only do they have new, voices they use for the new couples, but they're using the same voices throughout the whole trilogy, which I always love when that happens because they are really personalizing each of those narrations for those characters. So the first one is a single mom, younger hero, older heroine. There's lactation kink in that one. That's actually why I first tried that book. The second one is age gap where he's older, very grumpy, sunshine. There is anal with a cucumber in that one. And then the third one is they're like the same age, but it's a virgin hero. There's some chastity kink involved, but it was very like soft. Like if you don't want to read a complete sub hero, like you don't know if you like that. This was a good one because it's just, he's just sub enough that you get the dynamic play you want, but the heroine isn't being like tough dom or anything. So I really, really love this series. This is great. Okay, we have another one that Must Love Audio sent me, and I don't have the first one that I listened to with them, but I was so kindly sent Forever the Highlands from Valentine PR. But I listened to books 4, 5, and 6 in this series. So there was Skies Over Caledonia, Northern Twilight, and Forever the Highlands. And these were all narrated by Shane East and Zara Hampton Brown. I think that Zara did all 3. I believe that she did. But for sure Shane does them all. And so there's Highlander accents as well as some British accents in here. And this was a small town in the Highlands. And this is a spinoff from like the Adair series. But this one was the final book that just came out. And this one is Ellie Adair and then Fife Moray. And this is a friends to lovers, or brother's best friend, but also their friends to lovers. The heroine's an actress. But this series, I had never listened to a Samantha Young before. But Must Love Audio was offering Skies Over Caledonia. And they were like, you don't have to have read the other books. And it was an arranged marriage. An American and a Scottish guy, they have to get married. He's a farmer. They're trying to save his land. And she needs a green card, basically. Because some of her sister lives in Scotland. And she has exceeded the number of days she can be in Scotland without, like, being there. And so she gets a fiancé visa. And we go from there with it. But that was Skies Over Caledonia. And I know I'm holding up this book, but in Skies Over Caledonia, that narration just, I got sucked in. There's a little bit of suspense that goes with it, but I loved both 4, 5, and 6. And I will go back to the beginning to listen to it. And I'll also finish up, this series, and I'm going to read the Adair series too. That's my goal for next year. Okay, there was The Boyfriend Goal by Lauren Blakely. This was me getting back into Lauren Blakely. She has so many books, and she's prolific with her audiobooks, okay? There are certain narrators she works a lot with, though some of those narrators are ones who've gotten in certain hot water in the last year, so I don't think they're used quite as much. But she still works with a lot of, like, the hot top authors these days. She writes some of everything, but really sports romance is what I'm reading from her right now. Lots of hockey romance, but she has tons of other books. Like, I first read her from many other series in the past. She has a lot of interlocking series and that, and she's fantastic. So I first signed up for The Boyfriend Goal with one of the PR companies she was working with, but now I'm getting the ARCs and ALCs like directly from her now. But with The Boyfriend Goal, I got an ARC of this one, and it was so cute. This is in my like cutest books I read this year. Absolutely. Like, all of her books are duet narration, and I just love that. So this one was narrated by Connor Craze. As I said, he came back in here, and Aaron Mallon, and this one is a teammate's sister, and they have this really funny meet cute. I don't have time to go into all the details, but they have this cute meet cute. They have a one-night stand, and it's great, okay? And she ends up accidentally leaving her scarf at the hotel, and he's like, I'm going to use this as an excuse to see her again. And before he has a chance to look her up and find her, his captain on the hockey team says, my sister needs a place to stay for 3 months. I know you guys all have big houses and you're hardly ever home. Do me a solid and put my sister up for a couple months, because the place she was going to stay in town is, you can't stay there. And her brother has a brand new baby at home. So he's like, we would house her, but it's not fair to her to have to listen to the brand new baby right now. So, he volunteers because he wants to be on a good side with his captain, and he also is like, it's true, I'm barely home and I have this great, like, they can stay there. And who should it be but the woman that he had a one-night stand with? And he's like, great, I really wanted to see this woman again, and like, I can't. So now they're roommates and they have this crazy sexual tension. But like, Lauren Blakely did it so cute, you guys. It's so cute because yes, we start off with a one-night stand, but they're so good together that you're like, man, we want this to be something. And then this roadblock that's put in place, like, you understand it because she's there for a limited time. And it's not that the brother would like hate that they were together. It's just, it would make it awkward if things didn't work out and she's going to be leaving. But trust Lauren Blakely, trust where the story goes. This was adorable. There's just so many fun things. There is a bucket list, I believe, involved in. This is the one with the bucket list. Yeah, this one has a bucket list. It was great. And the narration was wonderful. So this was fantastic. And I've also listened to the, was it the boyfriend goal? Was it the fiance something? I don't know. I listened to the next one too and liked it. Okay, then quickly mentioning Wild Eyes. Won't talk about this too much because this will be in my favorites list and more, but I wanted to mention this audiobook specifically because not only is this duet narration with Teddy Hamilton and Savannah Peachwood, but there is also music in this audiobook. There's 2 different songs that are sung in this one that were written for this. There's the song called Wild Eyes, and then there's also another one in here as well. So yeah, this one was fabulous. This is a kind of enemies to lovers, but not really, but it is a country music singer who's trying to like start fresh. So she's going to be working with Rose Hill Records, which is what the hero from the first book does. So she's staying in this town and she's just been really kind of misused by the industry and wants to like start fresh, and she needs to be cut off from the world, and Weston kind of forces her to do that. And it's really tough in the beginning, but he's also secretly a Skylar fan, and he tries to hide that so as not to appear too over the top, but it was adorable. And also his 2 kids both really like her. So this was so sweet. Again, we'll talk more about that book later, but I had to put it in my favorite audios because it was great. So tip for that one though, when a song starts, if you're listening to it on a faster speed, you need to slow it down to either 1 or like 1.2 because it's a song, and songs aren't meant to be listened to at ×2. Way different than listening to a book at ×2. You'll miss the whole thing. But they were beautiful. I cried during the songs, and it was great. Okay, number 10, and the last one to share in here. This also kind of represents an author duo as a whole because I listened to a lot of their audiobooks this year, but this was the one that I enjoyed the most of it. And this is Mr. Heartbreaker by Piper Rain. I actually interviewed Piper Rain on my channel when this book came out. I also interviewed Willow Astor. I forgot to mention that. So I do have author interviews for them. But this is the beginning of their new hockey series. And it's duet narration. So there's Sean Masters and Aaron Mallon, who I love both of them. Sean Masters, he also does great cowboy. He narrates a great cowboy, I'll just say that. But in this one, he's a hockey player. And this one is another one that's kind of a one-night stand. And then we find out that we know each other more than we should. And so the hero's really trying to convince her to give him a chance type of story. But this also has a full cast. So there's also J.F. Harding, Troy Duran, C.J. Bloom, Teddy Hamilton, and Connor Craze are in this one because they each narrate who they will be, is what the authors told me. So in this one, you know, Sean Masters and Aaron Mallon do the main couple, and they do, like Aaron does all the other female parts except, I mean, CJ Bloom shows up too, but anyone who's not one of those characters, they narrate. But when any of the hockey players are there, they're narrated by who's going to be them in their book. So I think that's so cool. Like the next one is a single dad, and I'm pretty sure Troy Duran is doing his voice. I don't know, but they're them. So it's technically like a full cast audio at the same time. So that's what made this one extra special. Even if the romance was just like at a 4-star level, the audiobook was 5 or 10 out of 10. Like it was great. And that's really what this whole list was about, to round this out, is that not all of these books are 6-star reads or favorite. A lot of them were, but a lot of them are just, they're elevated by narration. And that's not always the case, but with a lot of these who are my favorites, which I have made a list before of my favorite narrators, a lot of these who are my favorites, they elevate a story for me, and that's why I love them so much. So there's that. So anyway, let me know who your favorite narrators are. Again, I have made a whole video about that one if you want to check that out. But let me know what your favorite audiobooks were if you are going to listen to some of these. Again, I have links to all of them down below if you want to check it out. I do get commissions off of audiobooks too. I don't know if you guys know that. I also have a link to my favorite headphones. I didn't like review those on here and talk about it, but I got these actually for my birthday this year. Because I wanted an over-the-ear one because my AirPods, which I use for working out, they hurt if I keep them in for an extended period of time, like reading at the coffee shop for hours. but these are super cheap. They're usually on sale for up to like $25, but at most they're like $35. And they're an over-the-ear set. They get like 30-hour listen. At least they still do for me. And they have comfort foam ears. So I use these, and like they're sound canceling. They're super soft, and they don't hurt my ears the way my AirPods do. And also, like, AirPods are super expensive, okay? So I'll also put a link down to my headphones. These are my number one, like, headphones for listening, because I've had a few people get them on my recommendation. There's different colors of these. This one's gray and rose gold, but there's, like, all different colors of them, and they are stellar. So anyway, little promo for those, but I'll have links for all that down below. Thank you so much. I hope you're having a great holiday season. If you want to check out my other favorites lists, I have a few of those videos up right now, and I have a few more coming. And yeah, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon.